outbreak took place in the Middle East and parts of North Africa, but the one that took place in Egypt garnered maximum attention.
There was a 2.3 million uprising in Turkey against the anti-democratic inclinations of the Turkish government. The Turkish mainstream media was repressed by the state and controlled by business interests and largely ignored the issue. So when people put on the channel in Turkey, CNN Turk was showing food shows, there was a documentary on penguins, there were dance contests. So what did the protesters do? They appealed to the social media. There were web blogs. There were extensive web blogs. There were tweets and there were Facebook status updates that all appealed to international news channels and newspapers to cover these protests.
What the media did was, it brought to light the growing concern of lack of women's safety in the nation. Media coverage of the nationwide protests against gender violence helped bring a lot of awareness, and different media firms and publications started their own campaigns after the incident.
Most important problems facing the media is the problem of education and training.
First problem being the release of classified information, where, as we saw in 26/11, news channels were covering what was happening inside Taj, and the terrorists could actually use that. Next problem is political alignment, which, while all the newspapers should be centrally aligned, they aren't always. They support different parties, just a little bit, just slightly, maybe subtly and maybe not so subtly also. My last problem is conflict with the law, which is basically how journalists cross the line sometimes and cross the border to break the law and get their story, and they think they're doing what they need to, but I think it really depends on the conflict.
Problems that come on account of digitalization, it's like a vicious circle. One is the common notion that is newspaper a dying breed, and that if it is so, then it leads to a loss of revenue. Loss of revenue leads to loss of jobs. Loss of jobs reduces authenticity of the news. Further ahead is this chaos, which is not adding value to information. And then the greater question is, this kind of personalization, does it help us understand democracy? Does it help the picture as a whole?
The state has tried to regulate the activities of media, much to the latter's discontent. And there's a UN Charter, the United Nations Charter of Human Rights, which deems freedom of press with minimum state intervention necessary. But neither the freedom of press and nor this intervention are absolute.
I would like to quote the PCI chairman's statement when he said self-regulation is no regulation at all.
On 9 July 2012, Indian media truly hit the rock bottom when a young girl walking out of a pub, being molested by drunken men on the streets of Guwahati, was filmed on camera by a news-like journalist, Gaurav Jyoti Niyog. And not just that, the clip was then aired on national television as a classic example of deteriorating cultural values of Indian women. Why shouldn't we have a regulatory body or some council that would check and ensure that the code of conduct is adhered to and anyone and everyone who violates the code is penalized?
Article 91A of the Indian Constitution talks about the freedom of speech and expression. It is one of the most fundamental rights that all citizens have. But the government is really smart because they have put some restrictions on place so that they can control a part of the media. They can control a journalist by printing reports which can go against the government.
Anything that is propagandist in nature is banned by the government. Doesn't that sound like the government is like any other religion?
Basically, why we are against media regulation is because it hinders the message that is to be portrayed properly. As in, if I were to say something, and if you were to tell me that you can't say this, you can't say that, you can't say something else, then how will I even give you the message properly that I want to say, convey? That is why misunderstandings take place mostly. So that is what it's all about.
First we became human, and when we became human we needed a language. So a language to communicate, a symbol, a signs, and we needed something to communicate.
Gone from letters and telegrams to emails, short messaging services and WhatsApp. But even though the technology as it changes over the years. The aspects like human touch, the language, these aspects are never going to change in communication.
But let's not forget the fact that what makes you an ethical communicator is the basics. It is for journalists, for us to be a part of the media world, it is very, very important to have confidence when we speak to people. To make sure that we have a good communication rapport with our sources who are like very, very important to us. Articulation is again a very important trademark for every communicator. So with all the learnings, I want to say this to all of you, take these as learnings, imbibe in your future careers. Thank you all for being such a wonderful audience, guys. Thank you.